Hello, everyone. This is Under the Mayo. Welcome to another episode of Profiles and Gaming Enthusiasm. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Miss Susie Hunter, aka TheSphereHunter. How are you doing, Susie?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Just before we started recording, we were having a little chat about diets and schedules and all the YouTube streaming stuff. How it can really screw up your sleep schedule. I'm wondering. Well, you just went for a coffee since you're pretty much waking up like me. How do you take your coffee?
I usually do, so I'm good with like either black coffee or I do like one sugar, one creamer. Just very
Okay,
basic. Like I want the bitterness to be there because I feel like it kind of wakes me up a bit. Just
sure,
like, whoa,
sure.
whoa, this
Oh,
sucks. It's just, you know, but
yeah. That's why I purposely stub my toe every morning, just
yeah,
to
just to
just to
wake up a
get that
bit.
jolt. Uh,
It's like when you jump in the
so
shower and you're just like you just put it to the coldest possible setting before you
no,
put it to
no.
hot.
No, no, I've got some kind of water pressure problem here where the water that comes out of my shower is scorching hot,
Oh,
and
that's the
so I
worst.
I have to slowly inch the cold faucet
Yeah.
to get it right. But the thing is, once I get it to where it is, it shuts off the hot water.
Oh, weird.
So I have nice water for about 30 seconds,
Yeah.
and then I have to turn everything off, turn the hot back on, get it hot again, and then repeat the process. And
God,
that's how I shower.
God. You gotta call the plumber. Holy crap. That's
So
crazy.
everyone who wonders why I'm so angry in some of my
Yeah.
videos, that's why I haven't had a decent shower in 3 years.
Yeah, the coffee sucks. The shower is busted. I can't go to sleep on time. Like,
Speaking of not getting to sleep on time, like how do you reset? Because I mean, I've had my channel for like 10 years, but like doing it seriously like a year and a half, and sometimes I'll just find myself working till 6 or 8 in the morning, and then my sleep schedule is screwed up for the next week or two. How do you reset when you find yourself in that kind of position? Do you stay up a full
um,
day to go back to sleep at night, or what?
I, so I feel like that is a problem that I used to have a lot more at the beginning of when I started taking this whole thing seriously. Like, just having because I used to like party it up all the time, back in the day. But
Okay.
ever since I kind of became like an work from home content creator, I've become a lot better at like scheduling myself, and so I'm usually we talked about this very briefly at this before we started recording, but like I'm usually going to bed at like 10 or 11, and then waking up at like 6 in
Okay.
the morning, 6, 7. When 2 o'clock rolls around, that's when I start working. And I work till like 8, and then I just stop completely and like go do other things. Um,
Is that always video work and streaming, or
it's
or
it's all of that. It's just scheduled differently depending on the day. So like if I'm working on a video, like it's usually I start with every project is different, but I usually start with recording the game that I want to talk about. So I'll
like
record,
recording a full playthrough first,
yes,
or
I
okay,
do that with every game. I record an entire playthrough, and then I start writing. And while I'm writing, if I have to get other, like if I talk about some like unlockable content or something in a game, like I'll go back and like record new stuff, just for that part of the video. And I make like a mental note when I like eventually get to the editing process to like use that part. Um,
is that your process when you're playing something that you're less familiar with? Because in my experience, if I'm playing something new, I'll record all of a playthrough just for
I do
reference. But
that.
if I'm
I
if
do that
I'm
for
yeah,
everything, for
everything,
literally
okay, because
everything. Yeah.
see, when I'm talking about something that I know really well for a long time, I can already think about what I know I want to record, and then
Hmm.
go in and kind of surgically record clips, so you don't have 20 hours of footage, because that can be really time consuming if you're when you're going through that looking for 5-second clips.
Yeah, it's probably why my videos take forever to come.
Well, you like I'm looking at your channel, and you have a major release every month or 2 months.
Yeah.
And is that because you're focused on other things, or you stream a lot, or is it just that you really take your time in making sure you get a video right, or you're like how does that process go for you?
I think it's a little bit of everything that you just listed. It's like for one, I think one of the rules I gave to myself early on was to not really like spam content as much. Like because I used to do that at the start. Like I used to make like little trailer analysis videos and stuff like for my
All
channel,
right.
and like that stuff wouldn't perform that well. Um, I even had a couple of like vlog type videos where it was just me like unscripted talking, and those really suck. I hate those kinds of videos. Um, so when I around the time I posted that FF15 Royal Edition video, that's when my channel like started to gain some traction.
Okay.
And I
And,
kind
and
of
how long ago was that? Was that like a year
that
ago?
was let me check
Two
real
years?
quick. I think that may have been like 3 years ago at this point, 3 or 4. Let me check real quick. That was back in 2018. So yeah,
Okay.
I saw how well that video did, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna shift all my focus to just doing that kind of video where it's like heavily scripted, voiceover. I'm not on camera, and it's just like, and it's all edited together with like music underneath, and that was really fun, like making that kind of video, and that became my normal, where I was just like, okay, I'm gonna chill, and I'm gonna think of like games that I want to, like topics I want to discuss. That eventually became like, oh, now I want to talk about like full retrospectives of video games, where it's like almost like a documentary, about a game, where it's like I start with the dev history, and then I get into like I throw in like a little bit of my personal experience, like if I was looking forward to the game or when the game came out, or in some cases like if I didn't play the game when it came out and I played it later on in life, like that kind of stuff. So it's
It's
fun.
good to add that personal side to it because I feel it helps people relate to it. So you're not just like talking as a reviewer. People are actually kind of getting
Yeah.
to know you as well.
And that's my favorite part about making the Devil May Cry videos, because those all of them start with me giving you a personal story, like, oh, the year is 2002. I'm here doing this, doing that, and then I see a magazine for Devil May Cry, and like, what's that? But like they all start like that, and I really like that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
those were really enjoyable.
I think it's like it's like it's trying to strike like a perfect balance of like having like a personal take on it, having like some good analysis on like the gameplay part, and then having it be like a review at the same time, or like a retrospective where it's like that you're covering the history of it. Those are the types of videos I like to make, and they definitely do take a while for me personally, just because I have to do everything myself, like record whole games and stuff like that. And to go back to what you were saying before, I really enjoy recording like a whole playthrough of a game, like even if it's a game that I really like, just so I have that footage for later, Like if I need to call back to something, I could I could just like, grab like a different part of the game that I didn't use before.
So you keep all those full playthroughs on hard
I
drives?
do. I have a
I
few I have like four terabyte hard drives that I have
I
like all my
I
games
should
recorded
I
on.
should do that because like I keep finding myself in a position where I've played some game that I utterly despise and then I need to mention it 6 months later. I'm like, I have to reinstall this game and I don't have my saves anymore. I gotta play 5 hours to
Yeah.
get this 10-second clip.
Yeah, yeah. So like that's what I like early on, I remember having to like just like use my YouTube video of like a game that I
Uh
want to mention, like in a new video that I was making. Like because I didn't have all the footage, I was just like, "Oh, there's some footage there. I could grab that." And it's like,
yeah.
"No." And then it doesn't look good because it's like kind of compressed. It's like I want the raw like 30,000 megabits per second like footage. So Yeah, it's really difficult making videos. I think people don't understand how difficult it is. Like it's just like
No, they
super
don't.
tedious. It's like tedious, you know? Like it's
It's and if you're like kind of like a perfectionist about it, which I get the vibe that you probably are.
yeah, I'm kind of a psycho when it comes to making videos.
Yeah, you obsess about like how the script flows, and then you watch the video like 15 times, and you're like, oh, that five
Yeah.
second part could be better. I'm gonna trim this, and then something that could have come out 2 weeks ago gets delayed. I know all about that.
Yeah, that's like my whole YouTube career is like, guys, it's coming out next week, and then next week rolls around and I'm like, guys, it's coming out next week, you know, like and then it'll eventually come out, you know. And then like, you know, we haven't even touched on like how for some reason I need like a custom piece of art for like every video that I make.
Yes, I was.
Like,
That's
why
one of
do I
my
do this to myself?
That's one of my questions. I'll skip ahead to that. So
Okay, cool.
each of your thumbnails has like a unique drawing of you. Do you have a specific artist for that, or do you take fan submissions? What's that process?
I kind of have like a team of artists at this point. Um, Dross Art and Itla are my two main artists who I go to for like most of my content. But I've recently kind of like I've kind of like roped Lisa, aka Liz Art, into the mix, and she does these like incredible like photorealistic paintings, and I'm just like, those would be good for Bayonetta, you know, like that kind of thing, where it's just like, oh yeah.
Right.
But I am gonna work with her a lot more in like the future on like a certain like video series that I have planned for like much later. So that'll be fun. But yeah, I think that is also like another huge factor in why my videos were successful at first and why people kind of, you know, kept like came back to like watch stuff. And I think it's just the art. It's like branding, you know? Like
I gotta be honest. I constantly have thought about adopting it, or I guess stealing it for myself, because
yeah,
I'm no like I have my Mayo icon, and I'm like, oh, you know, like, why not put a Mayo icon on every single thing so that people know what they're getting into?
yeah,
Because every
yeah.
time you have a video,
Like
the background is
you know
different.
what it
Yeah,
is.
you know what game it is, and you know who's talking about it,
Yeah.
and that's it's just really really good idea.
Yeah, and like that was it was a really early idea that I had to when I was talking to Dross like 5 years ago, like starting up this like whole channel. Like, can you draw like an avatar, like a cute avatar of me, but with like doing these like different facial expressions? So I was like set for a while, you know? But then like for special videos, like I was like, "Oh, can you do like a different like my classic RE3 video was like, "Oh, can you like draw my avatar but like dressed as like the classic RE3 Jill outfit, you know?" And then like when we got to
Devil May
remake,
Cry 2
yeah, yeah,
also has a cool one.
the Devil May Cry
Devil
videos
Trigger.
have a different avatar every time. But like I just like it helps spice up the video a bit. And like I always use the art in the video in some way. So it just makes it like fun, you know. It's
No,
branding.
I
You know
agree.
exactly who the content creator is and you know what they're going to be talking about. So, but yeah,
Yes, it's great. Yeah,
glad you
I'm
noticed.
doing that. I'm doing that a little bit myself, like with my Doom stuff. I mean, I don't really have to do that because people know what I'm talking about. But if I talk about Streets of Rage, or if I'm talking about maybe something that people don't expect, I'll put that Mayo icon on there, maybe
Yeah.
just so people might not scroll past it without realizing.
Yeah, because it's so difficult to market yourself on YouTube because there's just so much content, you know? And it's like
Yeah,
a lot of it isn't very good. And it's like you can't really blame the general, like the average viewer for not clicking on things because there's just so much crap on this
and there's
website.
no uniformity to it. Sometimes I go to the YouTube homepage and it's just like a big wall of vomit because all the
Yeah.
thumbnails, I just like, I don't even like, I don't want to click on any of this stuff, and I know half of these people.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I totally feel you on that one. So that's definitely like a conscious effort on my part. Just like have a very appealing thumbnail
Yeah, it's not loud and obnoxious. It's not screaming at you. It's good.
Yeah.
Your oldest video on your channel is your Final Fantasy 12 video, but you were talking
Yes,
about
yes.
how you used to do like vlogs and stuff. Have you just cleared that stuff from your channel history?
As soon as I got to the RE1 retrospective, I was like, I went on the freaking cleaning spree. I was
Hmm.
sweeping so many videos under the rug. They're still like on my channel, but they're just invisible. You can't see them,
Yeah.
but
Oh, I know how that feels. I'm like when my channel started taking off with Doom last year, I started looking at like my Mortal Kombat stuff, my Injustice stuff from like 2014. I'm like, this is awful. Just delete, delete, delete,
where you're just
or
like,
unlisted.
yeah, yeah, or you're just like, oh man, like I don't even agree with this person anymore, like
Yeah.
on half of this stuff, you know?
Or the
So,
mic quality is
oh
terrible,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah,
So
no, that's
that's the thing, like the oldest video on my channel was like my first attempt at making like a video essay type like piece of content. And
mhm.
that video in particular, I remember working on it for like I worked on it for like 3 weeks. Like, because I was so new to the whole process. And I was using like Windows Movie Maker, to like make it because I didn't have like Adobe Premiere yet. And like I really liked the video when it was all said and done, but like it barely got any views. And I actually took like a really long break from YouTube. And then I came back with that FF15 video and it did really well. And I was like, oh, cool. Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
keep doing this. Like this is a good idea. So, but I remember being so burned by getting like, like 1,000 views on my Zodiac Age review, and then look at it now. It has like 300 over 300,000, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, great.
So that's the video that didn't do well, but it got picked up as your channel got traffic.
Yeah. So like
Okay.
tons of people like went back and watched it, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
wow, cool. And that was like another lesson for me to learn, not to get angry. Like if a
Yes.
particular piece of content that I worked really hard on doesn't do well at first, because they all usually pick up later, you know?
You never know what's going to happen like in the news cycle. I mean, I've had the same thing. I
Oh
had
yeah.
like some videos that I put a lot of work into last summer and they didn't really do anything, but now they've done pretty well because of, trends or news stories.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
pick up things, or you mentioned that video in one of your other videos that did really well and it got people to go look at
Yeah,
it and
yeah.
it gets picked up by the algorithm.
That's like a cheat code, I think, for some things,
Hmm.
because you could just be like, oh yeah, like if you, I think it was my like Resident Evil 2 remake spoiler video where I like talked about the end of the game. Like I think I like plugged one of my older videos and it like picked up in views, which was kind of
Yeah.
cool. But
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
yeah,
if it establishes points that you just don't want to repeat so that you're boring regular
yeah,
viewers, it's
yeah,
totally
yeah.
legit. Totally legit.
Yeah, totally. I actually had a moment that happened like what you were describing with my Dead Rising video, because I made that I think in like 2019 or something, and then I think last year was when that story broke about like Capcom Vancouver making a Dead Rising 5 that was like kind of like The Last of Us, but then it got canceled like internally. Like that story blew up, and then like my video on Dead Rising 1 like got way more views, and like so many more people were like commenting on it, and I was like, why are so many people commenting on this? Like I don't get it. But and it's like that's why, because the news cycle like decided to talk about Dead Rising for some reason. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, everyone's
The
interested in this for like a week.
Yeah, it feels good. I was off YouTube for several years, and then I put in about 300 hours of work into a script and the editing for a big hour-long video about my views on God of War 2018, and I put it out, and with no expectations. It got 1,000 views in a year, and I was like, that sucks, but at least I made it. I feel good about it. And then when I started getting attention for Doom and stuff like that over the last year, and then it got picked up, retroactively, and now it's got 400,000 as like one of
There
my
you
top 10
go.
videos.
Yeah, exactly.
And which makes me feel great.
And I'm sure at the time you were kind of like, oh man, they're like, that really sucks. Like I put so much work into
Yeah.
that. And then but then it's like, look at it now. Like it's
Yeah,
doing
exactly.
gangbusters.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a great
And
feeling.
it's like one of the main things I'm known for now, which I'm
Yeah,
happy
yeah.
for.
Do you like that game? What are your thoughts on it? Because I don't think I watched that one.
I do not
Okay.
like God of War 2018. I think it is a very technically and artistically impressive game,
Yeah, yeah.
but I don't like how, I mean, aside from story stuff and all that kind of stuff, gameplay wise, it feels
It's
like
pretty weird. It's pretty
it's like
weird.
an open world looter shooter now.
Yeah,
and,
it's very
and
strange.
where like there's no actual in-game incentive to be creative like there was in the
Oh,
last games.
oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, I mean, like the answer to everything is use your heaviest attacks and spam your magic.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I look at all these cool combo moves, but if I do any of them, all I'm doing is putting myself at risk for no extra XP or anything, and the only thing to be excited about is picking up shiny loot at the end of the fight. And I'm just
Yeah.
I and plus, you can't even jump anymore.
Yeah, it's so stupid. It's very
I
weird.
guess that makes it serious. I get that comment that like this is a mature game now. Jumping would take away from the maturity. I'm like, he's flying around like Superman. The cutscenes.
Yeah, yeah, like he's totally, well, that's the thing though, like you can totally jump with like context sensitive actions. Like there is
Yeah.
a jump button when he like
The
jumps and grabs a ledge, it's like why
yeah
not just
the
let me do
auto
that? Like,
the auto jumping, the auto climbing, the claustrophobic camera in fights where you're surrounded. I
I
don't like it.
I liked that game when I haven't played it in years. I played it like once, and
Sure.
but I really enjoyed it, just mostly because of the story. But that is definitely a game where it feels like a just like a testing the waters for the series type of game where they're like,
Hmm.
we want to go in a different direction, so let's try this thing out. Because like
Yeah.
it really feels like a lot of that game is like unfinished from like a gameplay perspective. Like I remember there was a part, like, minor spoilers, where Kratos has to like go to hell, and
Hmm.
there's like a lot of hype about like this Hell Guardian,
And it's just a
and it's
troll
just a
again.
troll again, and you're like, wait a minute, hold on. Like
Yeah, that's in my video. It's there. There's a little
there's
moment.
so much hype, and I was so excited. And then you see like the big crow off in the distance, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be
Yeah.
sick. And it's just like an ice troll again.
It's like, fuck you. Fight another
Yeah.
troll.
Yeah, it's like, okay. Yeah, that's
I'm
definitely a game where I like it, but I completely understand why people don't like it, because you establish like a gameplay style, like a classic hack and slash, like Devil May Cry gameplay style for so many games, and then it's like Cory Barlog is literally in an interview like, "Oh, we were inspired by Resident Evil 4 for this game." And it's like, but why though? Why? Why Resident Evil 4? How about like God of War? Like
what bugs me about it is that they didn't have to. They could have still had the same exact game, feeling that way with that camera, that story, that art style, and they still could have had like an XP bonus for
Oh,
using
yeah, yeah.
multiple moves.
Exactly.
Or they still could have done it and they didn't. And that's what bugs me. Is like it would have just been better. There was no reason not to do it. And the reason I think they didn't do any of that stuff is because they wanted the game to just be generally playable for everyone
Oh yeah,
and
for
not
sure.
that's what bothers me about
That
it
is
at the
such
end of the day.
that is such a common goal for a lot of game devs. Like it's really weird. Like ever since I started my YouTube channel, I have like a bunch of game developer friends now that work for like
Mm.
massive companies on massive video games. And a very common sentiment that I hear like all the time is like, we can't have our game like let you just sit, like there has to be something happening all the time, and it has to be easy to understand. And it's like, I get it because you want to sell a game, but like this isn't fun though,
Yeah,
like
it's better when a game asks you to learn something,
yeah,
and it just sometimes that just doesn't happen, and I
yeah,
can't get into it, no matter how cool the weapons might be, or how great the
Sure.
graphics, or how epic the world, or how good the loot is, if I'm
Yeah.
not being asked to learn how to do something and punished for not doing it well when I've picked hard difficulty, then it kind of loses my interest. I mean, you can
Yeah,
have easy there, that's fine, right? But if I'm playing on hard and it's still just there's no consequence to anything, I don't really
for
see the
sure.
point, I guess.
There was another point I wanted to make too, where like when that game first came out, and a lot of God of War fans, like classic fans, were like, why not like fixed camera angle and jump button and like pulled out camera, and like people were using the thing that you said where they're like, oh well, this is a mature game now, we can't have
Yeah,
that
so
kind of
sure.
stuff. But then like DMC5 comes out and like does insanely well. Like so
Mm-hmm.
many people who have never played a Devil May Cry game pick up the
Yeah.
series because of that game, just because it looks fucking cool and like the combat looks fun. And it's like, oh, now
Yeah.
like Devil May Cry is like I remember reading like a Capcom sales report where they were like, we're gonna focus on on platinum hit series like Resident Evil
Yeah.
and Devil May Cry. And it's like, what did you just say? Devil May Cry is a platinum hit series? Like, do you really feel that way, Capcom? Am I living in a dream world right now? Like
Well, I mean, I hope for good things with Devil May Cry. I mean, I hope they make a sequel. DMC5 was my first. Well, I played a little bit of 4. I'm gonna play 3 eventually. I have my own issues with DMC5, but once it got to the point where like I was really being pushed with the combat, like later Son of Sparta, all of Dante Must
yeah,
Die.
yeah.
Then that's when I started seeing like, okay, there really is something here, and I hope they push forward with that,
Yeah, yeah.
and because ultimately I did end up liking DMC5, and if there's a DMC6, I mean I'm there day one. I would love to play it, and that I guess that kind of takes me to one of our next things.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we obviously have certain series in commons. Obviously, Resident Evil, and
Mhm.
when I played Devil May Cry 5 for my Everyone Told Me to Play series, I watched your entire video series on those
Yeah, yeah.
games, and they were really interesting. They helped me understand the changes the series had gone through, and I've known I wanted to talk to you about it for a while, and but before we did, I wanted to get to Bayonetta, which
Oh
I
yeah.
mostly liked. I mostly liked, while some aspects aren't for me, but it is a good game that I respect a lot for its vision and its mechanics.
Mhm.
And I was wondering if you could elaborate on your introduction to Bayonetta and how you feel how the second game improves on it, or maybe where the first one might be better in some ways.
Okay. So my introduction to Bayonetta was I was at a trade show in like the year 2008, and I saw a gigantic booth for something called Bayonetta, and I saw a massive lady outside of the booth, and I was like, "Whoa, she looks so cool." And then I went over and I played it, and I was like, "Wait a minute. Is this is this like the next Devil May Cry game? I don't understand." And then I found out that the creator of the first Devil May Cry was making this new series called Bayonetta, and I was really excited. And when I got home, I pre-ordered the game immediately. And when I finally played it, I was like, "Oh my God, this game is like way harder than Devil May Cry." Like I feel like I have to like be on like X Games mode like when playing this game. Um,
Yes, it's very very reaction
yes,
based.
yes. I think one of my friends said like in Devil May Cry, uh, the best offense is your defensive options, and in Bayonetta, your best defense is your offensive options. Like you just have to like be present 100% of the time to be good
Yeah,
at
it's a
Bayonetta.
laser focused
Yes,
game.
which I really like. And when you finally like ascend to a level where you can be good at Bayonetta and like you're getting like pure platinum medals and stuff like that, it feels so good. But I think it takes a really long time to get good at
Yeah,
Bayonetta. I think Bayonetta is a more inviting game. Like I talked about it in my Bayonetta 1 video where it's like you can just like if you're a new player, you can just like mash the punch button and she'll do
sure.
like a full punch combo and then a wicked weave like right at the end every single time. And that feels really good. And that kind of like gets you to experiment with the gameplay mechanics a bit more. Like you're like, oh my God, what was that? Like what was that giant fist that just came out of the air? Oh, if I like mix in another button, like she'll do a different one. Like that's kind of cool.
It is more inviting because the randomness that you can execute makes you want to figure out how you did the thing you just did.
Exactly. And like a lot of advanced mechanics like witch time and like dodge offset and like that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool mechanic. I did not master it, but
Yeah, dodge
I
offset
did
is
play with it a
sick.
bit, and it's cool. And I'm very glad that it's there.
Yeah. And the game also isn't doing the Devil May Cry thing where it's like if you mash a button, the game is just like dull. Like it just calls you dull, you know? So you might not be like if you're a new player, you might not want to like keep playing the game if you're like, "Oh, I'm just bad at the game because the game is telling me that I'm bad." Like Bayonetta just doesn't do that at all. It's like, "Oh, you could just like mash the buttons and have a good time," you know? Which is like
Yeah.
I think that's really cool for like a new player because it gets them into the game. Like it gets them into the door, you know? That being said, if you want to like be the best at Bayonetta, it can be borderline frustrating where you're just like, God, I have to replay this fight for like the fifth fucking time to get this to get like just a platinum medal on it, let alone a
Yeah.
pure platinum. It's like it can get super frustrating, but I still really like Bayonetta. Bayonetta 2, I talked about this in my Bayonetta 2 video, but like it's way easier than the first game. Like but it also has
It's
like
easier.
I think it's way easier like the to like
Okay.
get better rankings, you know, like you can mess up a lot in Bayonetta 2 and still like get a gold medal at the end of a fight and it's like how did I get that? I got
Right.
like they just like mopped the floor with me, but I still got a gold medal. But I think like the drawbacks to it is like Bayonetta can only really do damage in Witch Time and like Wicked Weaves are so important, you know, where you're just like it's like I have to. Like literally every combo has to be a Wicked Weave and like has to use dodge offset. And it's like the Umbran
Is that on normal or hard or just overall?
I would say that's like a normal hard mode thing.
Okay.
Yeah, because easy mode is kind of just like it's just easy, you know, like you're just like
Yeah.
wiping the floor with everyone. But then like the Umbran climax move is just like a win button at the same time. Bayonetta 2 is really complicated. It's like there are so many things that I like about it, but then when I like think about the combat, it's like this could have been executed like way better, I think. It goes back to that conversation where it's like how do you get like a new player in the door, you know, where it's like oh we made this like giant like overpowered move, the Umbran climax where you just like annihilate everything at the press of a single button. And that's fun for someone who doesn't know how to play the game, you know? And like
Yeah.
if you are like high level player, like you can incorporate that in your combos, but it's like you like have to do that if you want to like do damage. Because like the enemies are like super spongy in Bayonetta 2. It's very complicated, like I said. It doesn't it feels like Bayonetta 1, but like too many cooks were in the kitchen, like, oh we should do this, we should add this. Like make the enemies like take more damage, but like make it easier to just mash buttons and like have a good time. And it's like, but that's not rewarding for like a you know what I mean? Like it's kinda
Yeah.
hard.
Because like there's gonna be players. I talk about this a lot on my channel. There's people who are going to come into a game, and if they can just like mash through, then they'll have a good time, and then that they'll get interested in learning more. But then there's other players who are like people gravitate towards the easy thing that works. If
Exactly.
there's
Yeah.
one thing that's gonna work, people are gonna gravitate to that, and
Yeah.
they're gonna end up dismissing the mechanics of your game, which is what has bothered me in some hack and slash games,
Mhm.
Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, where the highest difficulty you can pick from the beginning is normal, and
Yeah, yeah.
like right from the beginning, if you just mash that attack button, everything dies, and you're
Exactly.
like, there's an air launcher. Oh, cool, but why do you use air launchers in hack and slash games? To focus down a dangerous enemy that needs to take some damage and also to escape dangerous threats on the air. I mean,
Yeah.
from the ground,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But if those elements don't exist, then the air launcher serves no purpose. like what's the difference? Okay, I hit him in the air, or I hit him on the ground.
Which is
And
like a
so,
problem with
yeah.
the reboot of Devil May Cry, which I'm making a video on now. But
Really?
spoilers.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
ask what your next video is. Okay,
yeah.
cool. I haven't played that. I don't really know anything about it.
That
I'm
game is like a whole
curious.
other can of worms. Yeah. But anyway. Yeah, Bayo 2
Okay.
is I said literally exactly what you said in my Bayo 2 video, where it's like a new player will just focus on using Umbra and Climax to just like decimate everything in their path. Like why, like what incentive do they have to look deeper into the combat system? Like there's no point if you're literally just mashing a button, building up your climax meter and then popping it at the right time and then clearing the whole screen, you know? Like I gave an example too. Like I watched one of my friends play through Bayo 1 and 2 back to back, and she was having a hard time with the first game, and like she barely pulled through. But then when she played the second game, it like she got like the dual wielding double swords and just mashed the punch combo the whole game,
Yeah.
and used Umbran Climax when she had it and didn't buy any abilities or skills or items. And it was
Right.
like that's like all you have to know, like right there. Like that's like a normal mode playthrough, you know? It's just like
Yeah,
God.
and normal mode on Bayonetta 1, like it has that. Like there's a good, I'd say there's like a large portion of the game that you can just kind of, hit square and triangle, but
Yeah, yeah.
every once in a while you do end up in a fight with certain enemies and you're like, okay, if I'm not dodging at least a little bit, I'm going to get wrecked.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah.
do appreciate that in Bayonetta even though
Bayo 1 does crazy stuff where it's like, oh, these enemies, you can't use witch time on them. So
yeah.
it's
Oh
like,
man, that's
oh,
tough.
now I have to like learn how to parry. And that's like a whole other thing that you have to learn how to do if you want to like come out unscathed. And it's like
Yeah, it's good stuff.
they don't really do that in the second game. They don't really do that in a lot of hack and slash games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
One thing that, if I could make one change to Bayonetta 1, it would be the health system. Because one thing that I really love, and I talk about a lot with the original God of War games, in which
Yeah.
they changed in the new one, is that if you lose a lot of health in a fight, if you go into the next room, like you're still at that health value, and now you got to be really careful. You have to find health or cross your fingers to find an enemy that can give you some health, and
Uh-huh.
that makes you want to be a bit more cautious and not just mash all the time. And in
Definitely.
Bayonetta, when I was playing, like I would beat a fight and I would almost die, and normally I would want to feel good about it, but I would walk into the next room and I would die and then load checkpoint and my health was back at 100%. And I was
Yeah,
like, and
that's true.
it made me play more carelessly, which
For
I
sure.
think negatively affects the whole kind of like gameplay
Yeah,
balance.
like the
I would
combat
change
system.
that. I would give it a God of War system of either finding health or having to get health back from enemies. And then I think that would just open up a whole world of possibilities in
Yeah,
Bayonetta's
yeah.
gameplay.
Yeah, for sure. Especially since they give you so many mobility options and like
Yeah.
dodging options where you can realistically like make it through with like a sliver of HP left, you know? Like you don't have
Yeah.
to be at 100%. Like you can go through a full battle like with 1 HP and like make it out, you know? So that yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point. I didn't think of that before.
I would love to like you know how you charge up your magic meter, and if you
Yes.
get hit, you lose it. I
Hmm.
love that because that encourages you to be defensive. But if you could charge up those executions and then do an execution and that gave you like a 30% health recharge or something instead of your health recharging every time you die, Bayonetta would shoot up on my
Yeah,
list
yeah,
of
yeah.
games.
Do you
Yeah,
have you played Ninja Gaiden?
Ninja Gaiden Black or Sigma.
Yeah, just the series in general.
I have played. I played Gaiden Sigma in 2007. It was one
Mm.
of my first PlayStation 3 games. Loved it. Played it all the way through. And then I recently got the Sigma re-release on PC and
Yeah.
have had the time of my life.
Yeah.
Uh, I love like everything we're talking about right now with like the faults of certain hack and
Yeah,
slash
yeah.
games. Ninja Gaiden doesn't have any of them.
Yeah,
It's
because I was gonna
just
say, like, doesn't Ninja Gaiden like have like a health system like that where like the more aggressive you play, like you are rewarded with health?
yeah,
Yeah,
but you
so
gotta block all the
yeah.
time as well. It's so good. Like
Yeah.
normal difficulty on Ninja Gaiden is still very demanding,
Mhm.
and I've been playing through it on hard, and like man, I've really had to figure out what I'm doing. But it's very
Do you
rewarding.
remember like that one show on G4 TV called Cheat? Do you remember that show?
I watched a bunch of G4, but I don't think I remember that show specifically.
The entire show was about like cheat codes in video games, and like
Uh,
every once in a while they would do like a little like tutorial like strategy for like certain boss fights in games. And I remember their
okay.
Ninja Gaiden episode, the first boss, they were like, "Oh yeah, if you just like double jump off this wall and then do like the downward like slash on the boss, you could just do that for the whole boss fight." And it's like, this is so lame. Like, why don't you teach me how to like actually fight the boss instead of cheesing him to death? Like, I don't know. Just talking about Ninja Gaiden like made me think of that.
It's not a perfect game. By
Yeah.
no means is it a perfect game, but its theory, its philosophy is so solid, and
Yeah.
it's so like you want to kind of do a little bit of everything. Like you've got that attack string that ends with a kick that breaks someone's guard,
Mm.
and then you can do the flying swallow, and just oh man, it's just that's such a great game. I will be talking
Yeah.
about that game very soon on my channel, by the
That's
way.
exciting. That's exciting. But yeah,
You
Bayonetta's fun. Bayonetta's
Yeah, it is. I liked it. I did a video on it, and it was basically half and half. I'm like, here's the things I like, here's the things I don't.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I was glad that I played it, and I know what it's about, and I do recommend it if you think it looks interesting, you should play it. That's about as good as that series
Sure,
of
sure.
videos goes for me. I want to switch a little bit. We got to get to Resident Evil.
I know. I like
Right.
I'm doing all this stuff. Talking about Bayonetta. It's like, wow.
Okay. Okay. So here's something I wanted to ask. For me, Resident Evil always felt grounded, like in the first three games.
Mm.
It felt like it was just like laboratory, zombie experiments, military weapons, and conspiracy, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I first noticed the ridiculous direction the series was taking around the time of Resident Evil Zero, when we had an opera singing villain
Yeah.
controlling shape shifting leeches. And
Yeah.
I mean, I was young at the time, but even then I was like, "What is this? This doesn't make sense."
Same. Yeah.
And things just got more and more ridiculous from there. I mean, by the time Wesker was teleporting, I was out. I was like,
Yeah.
I get it. I get a criticism in when I talk about newer Resident Evil games. I don't talk about the story, and people are like, "Why aren't you talking about the story?" And it's my answer is because I stopped caring about the story once Wesker started teleporting.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
I'm just here for the gameplay. And I was
Uh-huh.
wondering, like, when did you start noticing that change in direction?
I think I started noticing it a little bit earlier than Zero, but Zero was definitely like the breaking point where I was like, okay, like what's going on now? Like how is this? How are you explaining this away? But
Yeah.
when I played CVX, Code Veronica X, and like
Okay.
that game was definitely like the beginning of like what is going on? Like why is this so weird? Where like the first three games felt like you were playing as like a human, like going up against
Yeah,
an
a human
impossible
and
threat.
zombies
Yeah.
and viruses.
Yeah, and like just seeing Wesker in CVX like being a total weirdo and like running doing like Matrix run with like his little shadow
Oh, did that
clones coming off of him, you know?
did that start then? Because I got a
It
confession to
did.
make. Because I actually never played Code Veronica. I have a copy here on PS2 that someone gave me recently. I'm gonna play it, but that was the one big game I missed out on because I didn't have a Dreamcast and I just never got around to it.
Code Veronica is really strange because the Dreamcast version, Code Veronica, Resident Evil Code Veronica, doesn't have weirdo shit in it. Like
Really?
it has a little bit of weirdo shit, but the re-release CVX is when they completely overhauled Wesker's character. So in Code Veronica, the original version on Dreamcast, there's like a very specific boss fight. I'll try not to spoil it, but like Wesker is like fighting a tyrant enemy, and he's like in the original version, he gets owned like so hard. Like he just gets fucking annihilated and like he runs away like a little bitch. Like it's really funny. But then in Code Veronica X, they completely redid the scene where he's like, "Oh, I'm a virus man now and I have glowing red eyes." And he like runs on the wall and like jumps off of it like on fire. He's like on fire and he punches the tyrant in the face. And it's like
Oh, Jesus.
and instead of like him running away like in fear, he's like, "I'll leave this to you, like since you're my first officer." And he's like talking to Chris, and it's like, "Oh, that's how the fight goes now." And there's also another part where like a human man gets turned into a monster, and then he turns back into a human, and it's like, wait a minute, like what? Could William Birkin do that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, is this stuff that
Yeah, without
always
without his
happens?
skin being all stretched out. And
He literally like deflates back down to human size, and it's like,
Come
how is this happening?
no.
So
Oh,
that was
no.
when I had some questions. But then when I got to zero, much like you, I was just like, wait a minute, like why, how, how is he controlling like
Yeah,
leeches
because it
by
becomes
singing?
now we're getting into like psychic connections
It's
and stuff
anime.
like that.
Like it totally
Yeah.
becomes anime at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
And the thing is,
I-
like in my mind, I'm kind of like I kind of separate like the two Resident Evil camps of like grounded realism and like cuckoo bird stuff.
yeah.
And I kind of like appreciate them both. Obviously, I like the more grounded side like better. And that was something that I really loved about the Resident Evil 2 remake, reimagining, whatever you want to call it. Like it felt really
Yeah,
grounded.
they stuck to it. They stuck to it. There's no magic.
Yeah.
Like it came right after. That's the weird thing. It came right after Resident Evil 7, which feels more serious and grounded, but
Yeah.
it's also not because it's about a girl having a psychic connection to all these monsters. So it's like a weird hybrid in
Yeah,
a way.
like she's like a hallucination monster, which like the series has done in the past, like with like Revelations and stuff. But like, yeah, it's RE7 and Village to a certain extent, like has
Oh, that yeah. You got floating dolls. I mean, that goes
yeah, I mean
super far.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I kind of liked it in Village because it's like very 3.5, like RE 3.5. which I
It's
was
so
like,
over
oh,
the
hey, cool.
top. It's so over the top that I don't have any issue with it.
Yeah, yeah, same. Like and that's where it kind of like that game falls into the category in my mind of just like cuckoo bird stuff where I like it and I'm like, oh cool, like new things in the series. That's nice. But yeah, like 7 and 8 definitely feel like they're trying to do everything that the past Resident Evil games have done, like in terms of the story and the gameplay, where it's like, 7 is like this more like grounded RE1 feeling game in the gameplay department, where it's like you are like slowly moving through a
Yeah.
labyrinthine environment, like finding resources and items and stuff like that, and you feel like you're actually trying to survive, like in a survival horror way. But then like Village feels like it kind of opens with that kind of stuff, but then it gets like way easier and like you become like an
Yeah.
action man, which is like I'm fine with that because it's like it really feels like they're trying to like be RE4 and like even like RE5 to a certain extent in Village, like
Yeah.
towards the end game. But like yeah, 7 and 8, like it feels like they're trying to just do everything. It like they're
Yeah,
just
you
like
kind of
just do
lose your
everything.
identity when you do that.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah, for sure, for sure.
looking back at like the history of Resident Evil, I like if I could change one thing, it would be don't bring back Wesker because he died.
Yeah. Oh my
He,
God, please.
the guy is dead, and like in multiple endings, like either he's stabbed by the tyrant, or you find him dead by the engine, or the mansion explodes. The guy was gone. There was no
I
need to bring him
know,
back because
I
he wasn't even interesting to begin with.
That's the
And,
thing, right?
yeah.
Like the original RE1, they kill off Wesker so like unceremoniously.
Yeah.
But then in like Remake, I love Remake. Remake is like my favorite video game. But like that is
Yeah,
definitely like the one thing where it's like they plant these like seeds, like these connections to other games where they didn't need to do that, where like there are files talking about like Alexia and stuff. And they try to make they give Wesker a more imposing and like menacing presence throughout the game, which is really cool. But it's like they're trying to like retroactively like retcon Wesker's character in Remake 1, you know? And it's like,
Yeah,
I kind of wish they didn't do that and they just kind of stuck to like the book, you know, like the good book that was the original RE1. But
indeed.
you know,
And
I still love Remake, like literally everything about it. So
well, I mean, it's your video. Like you and me actually put out videos near the same time.
yeah,
Mine was a little later than yours, but we both had the same title basically.
yeah,
Yours was Resident
yeah.
Evil Remake Survival Horror Perfected. Mine was like Resident Evil Remake The Perfection of Survival Horror.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched your
And
video. I liked it. It was
oh,
great.
good. I watched yours too, of course. And but like looking back on it, there's so much more I want to say. I have to do a follow up because I mostly focused on like the camera
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and the resource management and stuff.
That game
And
is
so
so good. I love that. I could talk about
it's
that game
so
forever. Yeah.
like it's the gold standard of the survival horror experience, and it's just how often is a game remade and just superior in basically every single way? It just doesn't.
Yeah,
It's not common at all.
it's really difficult too because I'm not usually a fan of remakes like in any way.
Mhm.
So it makes my arguments when like when like certain video games like get remake announcements and I'm like, "Oh, like
Yeah.
just re-release the original version." But then people are like, "But your favorite game is a remake." And I'm like, "I
Yeah.
know." Like,
Yeah, but it's the exception that proves the rule. That's the thing.
yeah, 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 yeah. And like I always try to justify it too, like because like there are like developer interviews for RE1 remake that like, you know, with that game, a lot of the stuff in that game was supposed to be in the PS1 version, you know, but they just couldn't
Yeah.
do it at the time. Like the whole Lisa Trevor like subplot was like
Hmm.
supposed to be there, but they didn't have time to flesh everything out. And like a lot of the rooms are like super empty in the original RE1 and like the puzzles are like brain dead easy. And like they really like that's the thing, like the remake of RE1 feels like the true vision of RE1,
Yes,
you know?
it
So
does. And I just recently did a playthrough of Chris
yeah.
on hard mode,
Yeah.
and I always play Jill,
Mm.
but like it had been maybe 10 years since I played Chris, and so
Yeah.
I didn't remember anything. Wow, that is a
Playing
hardcore
playing Chris
experience.
is like a trip, yeah. Compared to like
They
Jill's
sh-
game, it's
Yeah,
wild.
they should say it at the beginning of the game because that's an issue because it should say that Jill is the start with Jill and have 2 extra inventory spaces and a lockpick
Yeah.
because people will be like, okay, I'll play as Chris, and they're gonna have a very different experience.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I always looked at it, um, I always looked at Jill's game as like the canon like story playthrough because like more stuff happens in the story. The
Yeah,
characters are way more present. The gameplay experience is more enjoyable, I think. Um, and then
she's more interesting. Chris is like a
yeah,
blank slate.
Chris's playthrough to me feels a lot like, and obviously for those of you who are listening, I do not hate Chris. I fucking love Chris. Please don't crucify me. Just hear me out for 1 second. Chris's playthrough really feels like a second playthrough when you've gone through the whole mansion, you know the layout, like as Jill.
Yeah,
You play it again as Chris for a more challenging experience, for less story,
agreed.
you know? Like that's what it feels
Agreed.
like to me. And you know what's the
Less
shittiest thing
inventory.
is I really wanted to say that in my video on Remake, but I had a freaking ad deadline because I put an ad in that video and they were like, you can't spend like 3 months making this. Like you have like 1 month to make it. So I couldn't fit everything in the video and I was so upset. So I too might also make a follow-up to my Remake
I was
video at some
just gonna
point.
say that.
Yeah.
Focus on Chris, right? And then you could do another one talking about like the changes they made to Code Veronica. That would be pretty interesting too, because I didn't know about
I've
that.
thought about that one too. Yeah, at a certain point, I definitely want to make like a quick video on that, like maybe like a 20-minute video on Code Veronica's like changes and differences. But yeah, yeah, remake is fantastic. I don't even know if that was your original question, but like I don't know how we got here, but I'm always happy
Oh,
to
I
talk
was
about it.
Yeah, we were just talking about the change in direction, and we got to remake. Hey, I'm happy to talk about Resident Evil
Yeah,
remake
yeah,
for
same.
for like 8 hours.
Yeah,
I just will not shut up about how good that game is and how good it is. Like I've met like new friends that don't know anything about Resident Evil, and then I've sat
yeah,
them
yeah,
down to play it, and like I've lied to them and be like, hey, yeah, this came out a couple years ago, and they'll believe it.
yeah, yeah.
It's shockingly good.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
aged so well. And especially if you
so
like
well.
give them the HD version that like
Mm-hmm.
has the traditional analog control. Like
Yes.
that's the thing, right? Like people are always complaining about like tank controls, like, people that aren't like psychos like us that love survival horror games, but like the second they play a Resident Evil game that has like just analog control, like they're into it. I've seen it happen so many times. Like with
Yeah.
Remake specifically, it's like, oh yeah, just try it out, like play it, and then they're like, oh, this is such a great game. It's like, yeah, right.
Yeah,
I,
the 3D controls. I know it's friendlier and the speedrunners will use it, but it breaks the game. The zombie AI is not meant to deal with you being able to spin around like that.
yeah, it's kind of insane, like how effectively you can bait a zombie grab and like do this like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure like spin pose like around them,
Yeah,
and you're just home free. Like
it's not made for that. You
yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to get like I always tell people it's like you have to learn the tank controls. Like walk into that dining room at the beginning of the game and just walk around. Just walk
It's
around the table and get used to how you turn with the camera.
it frustrates me so much that people just aren't willing to give it a shot, Like they
Yeah.
they futz with it for like 2 seconds and they're like, "No, I don't feel like doing this." And it's like, "How do you think I learned how to play this series when it came out, like when all of these games are coming out?" Like you just
Yeah, you
learn
you
it.
gotta
You learn how to
you
play the
gotta
game.
rewire your brain a little bit. You
Yeah.
gotta, but you'll get it. Like would you like to see a return to fixed camera survival horror games, even if it's just like on like an indie level?
Oh yeah. There are definitely a couple of those types of games like in the works right now, that I'm super excited for. I would love it if Capcom maybe like made a side game, like a Resident Evil
Hmm.
side game that was just like a classic RE game, but something tells me that they're never going to do that.
You know the speedrunner, what's his name? Bauka Soup?
Oh,
I
yeah,
never know how.
Bakwa Soup. He's a good friend
I
of
never
mine.
know how to say
Yeah.
it. He said something on one of his streams where he was playing the Resident Evil 1.5 build,
Yeah, yeah.
and he said that Capcom. And I totally agree with him. Capcom just needs to put together like a team of 30 people, give them a small budget,
Yeah, yeah.
and tell them make an old school Resident Evil game just with HD graphics, and it would sell like hotcakes. It would be
Yeah.
huge. The like, YouTuber the Act Man.
Yes, I do.
Okay, he. I watched his. I was trying to watch his Village review. I love the Act Man. I love a lot of his
Yeah.
videos, but I couldn't watch his Village review because he opens it by saying, look, he makes this comment about like that the Resident Evil games now is like they're like the old games, but now they're actually playable or something like
Ugh.
that. And
Ugh.
I was like, fuck that, man. There's millions and millions
Yeah.
of fans of those classic. Like we are where we are today because of those games.
I
And
don't understand that mindset when literally the games that they're saying are unplayable, like built not only the series that we're playing today, but like the genre
the
of
genre,
survival
yeah,
horror, like literally
yeah.
every survival horror game at the time, like freaking what was it? What's the vampire game? Vampire Night? No, Countdown Vampires, Silent Hill, Alone in the Dark at the time, like they all used tank controls. Like
Yeah.
that was the standard for that type of game, and everyone like played those games, like
It's what works with the camera style. That's what's so important about it.
exactly.
Like tank controls wouldn't work with other camera styles, but when you're using this sort of cinematic, like I'm looking at the character as they're facing me, like you want tank controls. so that you're
Yeah.
not spinning around with it. And that camera presentation, like I said in my video, it's like you're watching a movie.
Hmm.
People go crazy about like cinematic immersive games. There's nothing more cinematic and immersive than a game that is actually framed like you would film a movie, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
Resident Evil.
And to go back to Remake just for 1 second, like there are camera angles in that game that are just mind-blowing. Like there's one camera angle in the little cemetery behind the mansion that is like looking at you from the side, like through bars. And it's
Yes.
like, what is this? Like who framed this shot? I need to know. And there's like grass like blowing in the wind, like in front of the camera. It's so fantastic. It's beautiful. Like those games are so good. And like not even to mention like the countless camera angles that are looking at you through windows. Like those
Hmm.
are so good for building tension and like just building the atmosphere, you know? It's like that's all the cinema you need right there in your game, you know? You don't need to have like a slow walkie-talkie part in a video game.
There are three camera angles that just always stick out in my memory. One of them is in the guardhouse where you open the double door and it's looking up at you and the spiders on the ceiling.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
That's one. Another one is in the new side section in Remake where you're walking down that shadowy hallway and towards the bird cage, and you go up
Yes,
that
yes,
staircase.
yes.
That one's beautiful. I always just stop running and I walk.
Yeah, me too.
And, and then the last one, which is probably might be the greatest camera angle of all time, is in the laboratory when you're that giant fan that's spinning.
Yes, yes, that one is so good.
Holy
The Blade Runner
shit,
fan.
that's so good. It's so good.
But
I
like,
like,
but like, listen to what we're saying right now. The fact that you and I can pinpoint and describe completely different camera angles in this video game, like that shows how amazingly well placed and cinematic and like immersive they are, you know? Like that's all you need to know. Like
yeah,
like fixed camera angles are an art form. Like and it should like they shouldn't be dead. Like there should be
they really
games
should.
still doing like can you imagine if the RE engine had fixed camera angles? It would just look like
Oh
real
man,
life, you know?
it would
Like
look like real life.
because
Yeah.
the character models are photo scanned, they're photorealistic. It would just look like a movie. You're just watching a movie, you know? And especially if like the environments are 3D, like you could have that camera moving anywhere, following
I
you upstairs, going down a hallway. Like, come on, why not?
it, I don't know if I don't remember what video I said this in, but the fixed camera thing it helps your memory because when you're able to just move the camera all over the place, you don't have like a set image of the location that you've been in for like to remember.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, like I said, a picture is a lot easier to remember than a 3D environment that you're able to look around because it's just so solid and like, and we mentioned God of War. God of War is like that too. Like I can close my eyes and remember all kinds of fights because the camera wasn't flying around. And I just
Yeah.
remember the framing of all the environments and the background and the thing like in the back that's fighting something like it's all there because it's a still image that's burned into my mind and I really miss that about games.
Yeah, and like if you use fixed camera angles, it's like you can do exactly what and I hate, you know, I hate to dog on just like cinematic game, you know, but like if you're using a fixed camera angle, you can set it up exactly how you want perfectly to like frame a cinematic shot in gameplay, you know? It's just like it says so much more than just an over the shoulder
it
camera.
it
Like
can draw your attention to important items without having to
exactly.
have flashing indicators on them. It can direct your emotions.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's the art of film, and it's like it's being thrown out so that everyone can have full control over everything that they could possibly look at in a
Yeah, yeah.
360-degree angle. And I think it works for some games, but it just feels like I've talked about this all kinds of times in my videos. It just
Mhm.
feels like every game is doing that now. Every
Sure,
game
sure,
has
yeah.
to be the camera's back there over the character, maybe over the shoulder, and you can just spin around.
Mhm.
And like, how are you supposed to notice anything unless they make it like, look at this thing?
Yeah, unless like the game itself is like taking
Yeah.
control away from you and like
Hmm.
showing you like with like that happens constantly in like RE6, you know? And it's like,
Oh God, yeah.
it's so bad. It's just like, if you're gonna give me control of the camera, just let me have control of the camera, which is like a whole other freaking topic that we can complain about all day. But to go back to your
What?
point of like directing emotion, like one of the best examples of that in Resident Evil, I think, is like RE2 when you first get to the marshalling yard, and it's like you get that amazing shot where it's like the camera's like low to the ground and it's like it's showing just the sky with the moon in the sky and it's
Yes.
playing that like amazing atmospheric track. It's like I'm about to go into the belly of the beast right now. Like I'm about to go into the lab where
It.
all of this shit started, you know? It's so cool. Like why would you want to take that away from me?
Yeah, it's gorgeous, and there's so much, and you just know that there's so much thought put into
Yeah.
every angle. It's so good. What? Sticking with survival
Jeez.
horror, what? I've got several questions on this topic. What do you think makes survival horror games so special? Other than the camera angles, which we just talked about, what makes these games so special? Especially, I mean, the old school ones, because we don't have many new ones.
Um, I think the gameplay is probably the biggest component that makes survival horror stand out. Like having the player survive just in general, like having limited resources, having the enemies like hit really hard, you know, like making you feel like you're about to run out of ammo when your final shot kills the boss, you know, like those moments are what makes survival horror amazing. And I think a good add-on to that, and it kind of goes back to the camera angles, but like the presentation is really important too. Like sound design is essential. Like it has to be good. Like you need to you need to make every part of your game feel unnerving. That isn't like a save room, you know? Like when you're out of that save room, if you're just standing in a hallway, I want to hear those floorboards creaking. I want to hear the wind outside. Like if you're gonna put music in a hallway, like it's got to be scary, you know? It's got to sound scary. It's got to be droning and make me feel like, oh, I don't want to walk down the hall, you know, like I don't want to see what's around the corner. So
Remember when you go into the underground area in the first Resident Evil and the do 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 do
yeah, it's like, what is
do
this?
do do
What is
do,
going on?
and it's like it sounds like a underwater melody in a way because there's
Yeah.
all that dripping.
Uh-huh.
Just so good. Yeah, the sound design definitely agree with
Yeah,
that.
and that moment, like specifically, like it's such a perfect introduction to what happens. Like you walk down that hallway and you're in this giant like water room, you know, in both versions of RE1. And it's like, oh wow, like this is kind of creepy. It's like how does this place even exist? You know, like should I even be here? Should I leave? Like, you know, what should I do?
That's yeah.
And
That's
I
the
think
first time that you really realize that something is going on because it's the first time in hours that you've seen anything that wasn't just like a house.
oh yeah, for sure. It's like, oh, there's way more going on here than I thought originally. Like it's not just like spooky zombies. It's like this is like a government facility. Like there is somebody's doing something here, you know? And like that kind of stuff is perfect. Like you need to really set up scares and atmosphere effectively, like with the storytelling through gameplay. I think that's very important. And I think every good survival horror game does that. Like even Silent Hill does that, where it's like, you know, like the environments tell a story, like as you're playing the game. It's not just like you play the game, you get to a cutscene, and then a character exposits at you. Like you should be able to piece together like what's going on and like how the character feels, like every step of the way. You know, I think that's really important for survival horror games. Like every good survival horror game does that.
Yes, Silent Hill is especially good at that. Like the big difference in the fear, I guess, is like Resident Evil. You're worried about like what might be around the corner or what's going to jump out at you or something like that.
Mhm.
But Silent Hill is creates such good atmospheres that like you just walk in and you're just like I don't want to take a single step.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't want
totally.
to. I don't even want to continue playing.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting difference there. You know, with survival horror mechanics, like I feel like it comes down to decision making. Like you
Oh
mentioned, like
yeah.
the limited inventory, or like monsters being dangerous, or
Hmm.
not having enough bullets, and that whole like, okay, there's three zombies in here, and then there's three zombies in there, and I don't have enough bullets to kill all of them. So which zombies am I gonna kill? And then am I gonna go back and get fuel to burn which zombies so they don't come back? Like those kinds of decisions like feel crucial to the survival horror
Yeah,
experience, and
yeah.
it's why I don't consider something like Dead Space a survival horror game, because you can just kill everything. And or
Yeah.
like Resident Evil 4. I love Resident Evil 4. It's a fucking great game, but
Hmm.
I don't consider it survival horror because your inventory is so huge and you kill enemies and get bullets back from them.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
an action game. It's a great horror action game. But if you don't have to make decisions about who you're going to kill and who you're going to leave alive and what you're going to pick
Yeah,
up and what you're
yeah.
not going to pick up, it's not really survival horror.
Yeah,
Even if,
RE4
yeah,
is like a horror themed action adventure game, like without a doubt.
yeah, and people get upset when you say that too, which is the crazy thing about
It's
it.
like not even an
Uh,
insult. It's like I love
no,
RE4.
it's not.
I
It's a
literally
great horror
played
action game.
I literally played RE4 like 5 times in a row last week. Like like it's so good. Like
Yeah, yeah. I went back to it right before Village came out, and I did a stream with Carcinogen, like on
oh
call,
cool.
telling me where to go and what to pick
Yeah.
up. It was because I hadn't played it in 16 years. It was
Yeah,
great.
yeah. To go back to your
It
what you said, like decision making is so important, like what
yes.
you're gonna do, like in the moment. But like a lot of the time, and I think this is like the beauty of survival horror, is that like a lot of it is like split decision. Like you're making
Yeah.
these choices like on the spot. You know, like a lot of the time you're like, oh, there are 3 zombies in front of me. I don't have any ammo. Like, what am I gonna do? It's like,
Hmm.
well, I can try to like bait a grab and see if I can get past them, or I can get grabbed and push the zombie off of me, and it'll knock down the other zombies, and I could leave. Like, there's just so much going on in survival horror, and I feel like that. I just want more survival horror games, you know, like new ones.
That kind of like emergent gameplay experience
Yeah.
where things happen where you don't expect it. Like you'll go in with a plan, like, okay, I'm gonna shotgun the first zombie, I'm gonna run around the second one, but then you go in, and when you get out, you're like, that didn't go according to plan at all.
Yeah, yeah.
I just lost all my pistol ammo. I used two self defense items and a first aid spray. Fuck.
Yeah, yeah, that's like the worst feeling. And you know what's fantastic? Like RE2 Remake like does that so well. And it's
Yeah,
like you
yeah, it
got
does.
I just want to like I don't know, like I want to like just like grab the CEO of Capcom and be like, "You guys, you did it again. Like keep doing it, please. Like come on.
You
Like give me more
showed
games
that you
like
can
this."
do it and that it can be popular.
Yeah, and like RE2 Remake like does crazy shit too, where like that like the scenario that I described where it's like, oh, I'll purposefully get grabbed so I can push the zombie off me and it pushes the other zombies back. Like that doesn't even work 100% of the time because they made a new animation where 2 zombies can grab you at the same time.
Uh,
And it's like that is genius. That is so fantastic. I love that exists in the game, you know? Because it immediately it like flips you upside down, like all your knowledge of survival horror, and it's like, oh wow, like what the hell, like how is this possible?
so earlier we mentioned a little bit of Silent Hill. I'm curious, why is there no Silent Hill coverage on your channel?
uh, the simple answer is I'm kind of nervous to cover Silent Hill. I want to, but Silent Hill games, I feel like there's a lot of fan expectation, if that makes sense,
All right.
for a content creator to cover like certain things in like great detail. And
Hmm.
there are certain things about Silent Hill games that I don't have a lot of interest in. And I'm kind of nervous about making like a Silent Hill 1 video, for example,
Okay.
and leaving out like fan theories.
You could
You know
address
what
that
I
at the
mean?
beginning. I mean, you could say, "Hey, this is a video that's going to focus on these certain aspects, and these are the things that I personally love about Silent Hill." And then you could just go from there. I
Yeah.
think that would go over pretty well.
I am definitely going to make Silent Hill videos in the future. I just there's a lot that I have to think about. I by the way, I do love like I don't want to say most Silent Hill games. I love like the first four. A little less like I don't love four as much, like The Room, like all that much.
Right.
But
It's half a good game.
yeah, it's charming.
Yeah.
I like the atmosphere a lot. I like how they
Me too.
wanted to do something different with that like formula. And I like believe it or not, I like Shattered Memories. But like all the other games, like the Western ones, I'm not too hot on those games. Like I think
Yeah.
they're kind of janky and like a little like we missed
Yeah.
the point, you know?
Yeah, I'll go as far as to say that I think Downpour is one of the worst gaming experiences I've had in my life.
Oh,
I just
Downpour is one of the most boring video games ever made in existence.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we put fixed camera angles in the game, but like nothing happens.
But they don't work either.
Yeah, it's super weird.
Yeah,
Like
Silent Hill
on
doesn't need open world side quests.
yeah, it definitely doesn't. Like, oh, I really like how you recreated what's his face? Henry Townsend's apartment. Like that's really cool, but like it's not necessary. Like that's kind of cute, but okay. Like
Yeah, it's
on more than one occasion, I walked through a door in like a fixed camera part, and like the camera just stayed in the room, you know? Like it didn't follow me. And it's like, okay,
oh
great.
man. Oh, Downpour. Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing what you do. I'd also like I mention Silent Hill a lot, but I don't have any
Yeah.
videos on it, and so everyone's like, "Hey, when are you gonna talk about
It's
Silent Hill?" It's like I'll get there. I'm in no rush. I
yeah,
want to get it
yeah,
right.
same. Same. It's very intimidating, that series, because
It is.
it's so different from Resident Evil. Like in a lot of ways it's pretty similar, like just like the gameplay structure, like the way you play the game like is pretty similar, but like there's just so much more going on like in the story and like the subtext of like some of the monsters and like the environments and how the characters feel that you would really need to like it would have to be a more story focused analysis, I think, for me personally.
You
And
can't avoid it. You can't avoid that completely because the monsters mean something. Like
yeah,
the nightmare means something. The bosses mean something. And what they mean changes depending on the game you're playing. Because they're coming
yeah,
from three different people. The first one they're coming from a girl who's in a coma,
hmm
and the second one they're coming from you, and then the third one it's like they're coming from memories that you have inside of you of someone else.
yeah.
It's like
And it's like, what is going on?
yeah, yeah. It can't be just a gameplay video, and that's what makes me wait on it. I want to get it right.
Yeah, same. We're literally in the same boat on that
All right.
series. But
Okay.
I will put it out there that I do really enjoy Silent Hill quite a bit. I think I think it's a great series. I'm not very excited about it coming back though.
I'm not either.
I just don't think I think that Silent Hill is a very it's like a perfect storm that could have only happened like once in a lifetime. Like just those first like four games, like even I mean even like just the first three games are like such a focused experience by particular people, the
Yes.
particular people that made them, you know, and like everything that came after it really feels like people who think they know what Silent Hill is, but they don't, and they're
Yeah.
just making something that is like a Silent Hill skin over a different thing, you know, like oh we put nurses and barbed wire and rust like in our
It,
horror game,
yeah.
our psychological horror
I
game,
think a
and it's
lot of
like
them
that's
don't.
not
I
really
think
what
a
it
lot of
is.
them. I think a lot of them don't understand what Silent Hill is, even like in its own like mythology and how things work, and that
Yeah.
affects the gameplay, right?
Oh,
Like,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, and it affects the fear, like in Origins, like where you enter the nightmare world through mirrors, and it's like, look, no, look, you can't choose to enter the nightmare world. That takes away its threatening, nature. It's that it
Yeah.
could happen at any time.
At
Like
any
a
moment,
fundament,
yeah.
yeah, a fundamental misunderstanding of how the world works will lead to a misunderstanding of gameplay, and then you
hmm
just get big fat messes. And I'm not excited about it coming back either. I mean, unless they bring back the original team, I guess. But
Yeah, but that's very unlikely, I think.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I think Resident Evil translates into the next generations fine, but I think part of what gave the original Silent Hill games its horror was the technical limitations of the consoles it was on. Because Silent Hill is
Yeah,
so
yeah,
much more about the fear of what you don't understand, what you can't really
exactly.
see, and when you put things in high definition with a $100 million budget,
Yeah,
I don't know if they can really replicate that old feeling of like Silent Hill 1 where you're looking at a thing, you're like, what is that? I don't even understand what I'm looking at. I don't even want to
yeah,
know.
yeah.
I'm out of here.
It's very Lovecraftian in a sense
Yeah.
because you're just trying to figure out like what you're looking at. You're trying to figure out where you are at like all times, and that's what makes Silent Hill so cool. Is like I loved in like Silent Hill 2 and 3 when like you're in I mean even in 1 as well, but like you're in an environment that looks normal and then you get sucked into like the hell version of it and it's like this looks completely different, but it is the same environment, and you're figuring it like how this complex like series of hallways like fits into your previous understanding of like the human normal version of the environment, like on your map and stuff. And it's just like I don't know if that's possible to like do good again, if that makes sense. Like from like a
Yeah,
different team. Like I don't know
I
if it's
don't know.
possible.
I would rather them just stop. And like I don't want to take the
Same.
risk. Even if the next one does turn out to be great, I don't want to take the risk. I'm tired of
That's
seeing my baby
yeah.
get treated like this.
The thing, Resident Evil has always been really consistent in the sense that like a different person and in a lot of cases a different team would make every single entry, but they would follow like a strict guideline of rules to like make it feel like Resident Evil, like either in its gameplay or its story. Like Silent Hill is like it had that for like 3 games, and then the rest of it is just like people who aren't even following that like rule set that was established by those 3 games. It's just like a bunch of weirdo.
It's also a much more complicated rule set because when Resident Evil is like, okay, virus,
Yeah.
scientists, creepy place, monsters, go crazy. And
Yeah,
Silent
yeah.
Hill is like, if you screw something up, people are like, well, that doesn't make sense. That should literally be impossible in
Exactly.
this world.
Exactly. Resident Evil is literally like you're in a place, escape. Silent
Yeah.
Hill is like you're in like a psychological hell world for this particular character. So if you like introduce monsters from another person's psychological hell world, it's like, wait a minute, how does that work? Like what is like if
Yeah.
if you're telling me that like this place like feeds off of your psyche or whatever, like how is Pyramid Head showing up here?
Right.
Like that doesn't make
It
sense.
if it appears in that way because of one guy's like projection, it shouldn't like I guess it could appear to someone else, but it shouldn't appear that way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
exactly.
they didn't
Exactly. I was gonna.
have like the executioners in the Civil War time didn't actually have big metal helmets. They were hooded executioners, and the
Yes.
way he appears is like that character's sort of like perversion and nightmare form of that character. And so if they appeared to someone else, they wouldn't be metal helmeted guys dragging swords behind them. They would look different.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like yeah, Silent Hill is just so intimidating, I think, just for everyone involved.
Well, good luck to you when you finally put it together. And if you
Thank you.
need
I
someone to
appreciate
talk
it.
to about it, I'm here. All
Yeah.
right,
Yes.
because there's probably not many people to. I don't know. Like, there's some good channels out there, and like when I do a Silent Hill video, I would probably want to reach out to a few people and not do it on my own.
Yeah, I have one of my best friends who I actually do a podcast with, Charlie, the Gaming Brit Show. Like he has really good Silent Hill videos, I think. Like he's only covered the first 2 games, but like he really sticks to like what the game is saying, not really like what supplemental material is saying or like what the fans are saying about like certain
Yeah.
things in the story. And I think he does a really good job at like covering the games, in like a very serious, like focused way,
I didn't know
which
you were
is really
doing it
cool.
with him. I saw that you recently started a podcast, but yeah, he does great stuff. Congratulations on the
Yeah.
podcast
Oh,
creation as
thanks.
well.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really cool. I'm sure that's
It's
fun.
really fun. Yeah.
With Okay, with Resident Evil, I wanted to know what's the better sequel of the original, RE2 or RE3?
Oh man, this is difficult. I think, well, that's the thing. Like, there's so many factors that I think you have to think about. Like, I think that I like RE3 more than RE2. I think please don't kill me. I think it's more replayable than RE2.
I'm
I
100%
think,
with you.
yeah, I think Nemesis is fantastic.
The
How,
open city exploration, the
yeah,
whole
yeah,
first map of the game is just incredible.
it's
It's one of the
great.
best maps in the entire series.
Yeah. That being said, though, I think RE2's very clear and focused RPD, like opening chapter, is such like a perfect evolution of RE1. Like it's like a much more like faster paced um take on what the Mansion 1 is doing in RE1, where it's like you just like fits like a glove. You're like right back into that gameplay formula, where like RE3 like feels crazy. And like that's like the point of the game is that you're just like it's a desperate escape. Like you're just trying to get away from like everything, and like get from point A to point B to like hopefully find an exit, but like that doesn't play out the way you want. And like you feel that like throughout the whole game when you're playing RE3. And like RE2 is definitely like slower paced, like more focused of like, oh, okay, like now I'm heading to this room. I just got this key. Hopefully I'll get another key in that room. Like there's like a few zombies in front of me. RE3 is like, oh, there's like 10 zombies in front of me. Like, what do I do? Like, but I think I enjoy that more because of like the challenge of it, and then like
Yeah.
Nemesis can kind of show up whenever, like even though that's not really how he works. Like they it's like smoke and mirrors, but like it feels like you're just on edge the whole time. And like I think the horror is like way better in
And
RE3.
yeah, definitely. And the Nemesis aspect of it is that, yeah, he is scripted, but the thing is, if you go different directions on different playthroughs, you could
Hmm.
encounter him in different places. And that whole
Yeah.
like sporadic decision making where he's chasing you and you're like, I don't know this map very well. He's behind me. I guess I'll take a left here,
Yeah, it's
and
it's super
you just end
rewarding.
up places. Yeah, that was one of. I mean, obviously, I don't like the Resident Evil 3 remake, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was one of the big things about Nemesis in that first part is that when he does show up, I never had that feeling of I'm running away, but I don't really know where I'm going, because it's just, there's street A, street B, and the donut shop in the center. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll go this way, I'll go that way. I already knew everywhere I was going the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
time I
yeah,
played the game.
exactly.
I never felt like I was scrambling to find an answer. And
And
I
I
was
think
really missing that.
I think that's a big problem that game has with that open segment because it gives you so much time to learn the layout of the map
Yeah.
before
Which is already
Nemesis
very
ever shows
simple.
up. Like he should just be there as soon as you get out of the subway station, Like
Yeah,
why not?
I wouldn't have minded that. With the original Resident Evil 3, I feel like it is the superior game. I think the only mark against it is that it gives you way too much ammo, and the survival horror aspect of it starts to kind of break down
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you could just
for sure.
load up on so much stuff and just murder
And
everyone. And
you can just craft it right out of the gate. So it's
yeah,
just like, oh, I
yeah,
have like 130 bullets, like in the first save room. Like,
yeah, yeah,
let's
yeah.
go. Let's go to town.
It does, like, by Resident Evil 3, it didn't feel as authentically survival horror as the older games did. I mean, even Resident Evil 2 was starting to go down that road with, inventory expansions and the submachine gun
Oh yeah, by the
and
end of
stuff like that.
RE2, literally every time I play it, I have like 30 of each grenade type for Claire.
Yeah, and it's not like there's like a hardcore survival mode or anything to it. So,
Yeah. I
but
think
yeah,
the
I mean
PC
that
version
yeah.
has a hard mode.
Oh,
If you
does it?
ever
Okay.
if you ever play that, there's like there's like a fan restoration of it. If you've ever
I need
seen
to get
that.
that then. I yeah, I remember hearing about it. But this is why we keep coming back to RE1 Remake, right?
Yeah,
Because they just got it right. That first game is
it's
the one
perfectly
that got
paced.
everything right.
Yeah.
Um, which I
I
haven't played the spin-off games. Like I don't know Dead Aim, I don't know Revelations, I don't know Raccoon City. I've always been a core series guy for this
hmm
game. But I'm curious of the side games, what would you say is the best one, and which one is the worst?
Oh man. Another hard question. Here, let me look at my shelf real quick. I literally own every single Resident Evil game
Mm,
physically.
nice, nice.
Um, I think my favorite side series, I guess, is Outbreak, because it's a classic fixed camera tank control Resident Evil game, but like in multiplayer, but it's also playable in like single player, and it's like really hard if you play it in single player. But like I just love every single level of that game because it's like you choose a like a scenario to play through. Every single one of them has so much replayability. Like so many random events can happen in every single chapter of the game, and you never know what to expect. Like because there's so much like RNG in those games. I think the worst one. I don't know if this is a controversial opinion nowadays, but like I don't really like the Survivor series. Like the Survivor games are kind of like
Are
to
those the
me.
gun ones?
Yeah,
The
it's
light
like
gun
the
ones?
the light gun games, yeah.
Oh, right.
The first
I
one
don't.
is like an original story. Um it's like 5 hours long. It's really short. Um and you also have like infinite ammo for like some of the guns.
Mm.
Um it's very cumbersome if you play like the US release because we didn't actually get light gun support because like Columbine just happened when that game came out. Like no joke. And they were like, "Oh, pull the light gun support."
No, no.
Yeah, it's really crazy, but and then Survivor 2 is like a retelling of Code Veronica, but there's like no voice acting and it's horrible, like just all around.
Wow.
And Survivor 3 or the third Survivor, Resident Evil Survivor is Dead Aim. And I think Dead Aim is probably the best of the three, but also it's kind of weird on its own. Like the story is
Fair enough.
super super strange, but yeah, I think Outbreak is probably my favorite side game series, which is not like an uncommon opinion because a lot of people love Outbreak. It's
Yeah,
really cool.
I didn't pay attention to it when it came out. I don't know why. I just didn't. And in the later years I've heard that people really like it, and I missed out. And I'd love to, if I can't play it now, then I'd love to at least see like a big like analysis piece on Outbreak,
I will definitely do that at
whether
some
that's from
point.
you or from another channel. I'd love to know more about it.
If you're interested in playing it, I would strongly recommend checking out the fan restoration project for Outbreak. So, like, a group of fans actually got the online multiplayer working on PC through emulation. And there's like a really detailed guide called Dear Yoko, like online, that you can follow to get it working. And there's like a really fun, like helpful community of Outbreak players
Nice.
out there where you can like get a game like whenever you jump on. Like if you want to play Outbreak online, you can totally do that right now. Like get like three other friends together like on Discord and just play a classic Resident Evil game in four-player
I
co-op. Like
I'm
it's wild.
so interested.
Yeah. And that game has like legit like puzzles too that like everyone has to like figure out together, you know?
That's
It's
good.
super
No
fun.
slide puzzles. No slide puzzles, right? Like Ashley.
No, I don't think there's any of that
Okay,
in
thank
any of
God.
those levels, no.
I when I was replaying RE4 on stream like a month or
Yeah.
so ago, I got to the Ashley slide puzzle, and I was there for like 4 minutes just like sliding pieces
Uh-huh.
around as like the vein in my head was just swelling, and I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not doing this. And I just
Can I
quit.
can I tell you a secret to that
What's
puzzle?
there's like
The
a
the
what is it?
piece on the left in the middle, you move that to the middle, and then you rotate the rest of the pieces clockwise,
Yeah.
and they all fall into place. It's
I
very
knew there
simple.
was people were telling me that there's like that trick to it, right? But if you don't know that trick and you're trying to legitimately solve it, that shit's frustrating and boring as hell. I
Yeah,
hate
yeah.
slide puzzles. They put one in Silent Hill Homecoming too.
Yeah, ew.
Ugh. Ugh.
It's really funny when you look at the puzzles in RE4 because they're all very simple. Like when you like there's a puzzle where there's like four paintings and you have to display like six figures on the paintings and they like rotate depending on which button you press.
Yeah.
And there are four buttons and the solution is literally one, two, three, four.
Alien Isolation all over again.
Yeah.
But there is that one puzzle behind the church with the symbols.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
That one's pretty
I
cool. It also has a fun solution, like when you
Are you
when you figure it all out.
are
too.
you a fan of the what is it, the vaccine puzzle in Resident Evil 3 original, the water puzzle, the one where you have
Oh,
to line up the frequencies?
I believe it or not, I recently just learned how to do that puzzle like consistently, like every single time. And one of my speedrunner friends, Wolf DNC, actually like showed me the trick to it.
Hmm.
But before that, before I knew how to do it, worst puzzle in the series. I would go
Oh,
insane every single time.
oh, you're breaking my heart. It's like one of my favorite
No,
puzzles.
it's just
I
like
love
it's
lining up
so
all
hard.
the I love lining up all the lines and listening to the tone. I
Yeah.
love that stuff.
Don't get me wrong. I think it's a great puzzle. Like it is very good, but like I just say it's the worst because like whenever I would do like a replay, like it would ruin so many like under 3 hours
Oh,
playthroughs for me where I'm just like, God
that's
damn
too
it.
bad.
Come on.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Okay, we touched on Resident Evil 4. What are your feelings about the Resident Evil 4 remake, and what are your predictions?
Um a Resident Evil 4 remake. There's a lot of rumors of it happening. I kind of just based on like leaks that have happened in the past, I try not to like pay attention to them as much. Like I remember there were leaks for like RE Village, for example, like that came out like last year that like described this like wild series of events that was going to play out in the story, and none of it happened. So I was just like, okay, like whatever. So I'm kind of trying not to pay attention to RE4 remake. I think it would be really cool if it does exist. Like I think it would be really cool if they just like went 3.5 with it and made it like a supernatural like hallucination game.
Well, you mean like make a different game,
Yeah,
not like
exactly.
a remake of 4.
Yeah, like
That would be bold.
if they make it, well, I mean like I feel like Capcom isn't that dumb, you know? Like it kind of reminds me of like I don't know if you're a Final Fantasy fan, but like the FF7 remake. Like a lot of people are like how the hell are you going to remake FF7? Like that game is like untouchable, you know? Like a lot of people think it's just perfect. And that's exactly what they did. They didn't remake FF7. They like made a different game and called
Okay.
it FF7 Remake. And like, you know, that was kind of like the big twist of it. Spoilers. But I want them to do that for RE4. Like give me a trailer that kind of looks like RE4 and then when I play it it's just a completely different game. Like can you imagine like playing like a horror, like a survival horror RE4 where you're like slowly walking through the forest and like having to conserve ammo and stuff? I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have not liked the last two Resident Evil titles, and so I am
Mm.
wary. I would love to be surprised. I don't
Yeah, yeah.
necessarily want to just play a newer, better Resident Evil 4. I would love to, because you know, like in the Resident Evil 2 remake, and I mean, because we've played the original game so many times, like we
Uh-huh.
know exactly where to go. And you remember that first time you walk into the police station in the RE2 remake, and your instinct is, I'm going left. I'm going to the liquor hallway,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's locked. And you're like, oh wait, I'm going to the right side first.
Totally.
That kind of surprise, like on a much grander scale, would be something beautiful for an RE4 remake.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
for
you don't
sure.
even go to the village first. I mean, who knows? That could be
I
cool.
agree. Yeah, I totally agree. By the way, can I just comment on that real quick? I love how the art, like in RE2, like you get to the RPD and like you go say hi to Marvin and he gives you a key card to like open the rest of the doors. And it's like in the RE2 remake, you like go a completely different way, but it all like leads back to Marvin and he
Hmm.
gives you a knife to open the other doors. It's like
Hmm.
this is fantastic. Like this is like what I want out of like a
Yeah.
remake of a classic game. Like
Yeah.
change it up ever so slightly to make me feel like I'm playing a different game, you know? And I
Like
hope
they
they do that for RE4. So
like that third floor extension onto the RPD in the remake.
that was
You
like
know.
I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. I was like, why is there a third floor? Like this is so weird.
Yeah, that was really really good stuff. You know, I mentioned something in my Village review about how there's this moment the first time I played RE2 Remake where I didn't pick up the valve handle that was in that little side room, like
Yeah, yeah.
like the desk room of the main office, and I was saying how like I one of my problems with Village is I felt like I never had that situation where like I
Oh yeah,
missed
yeah.
something, like because they just like you you beat this witch, here's this thing, you beat this witch, now here's this thing, and some people were like, "What the fuck? How could you miss the valve handle?" And I was like, "Because the whole point is that it's a big room. Zombies are coming through the window. I feel
Yeah, yeah.
pressure, and in that
Mm-hmm.
moment, like just coming back to what you were saying about those split-second decisions in survival horror games, where I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, there's that little side room in this big office, but these zombies are coming at me. There's probably nothing in there. I'll go. I'm running."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then I run. Then I walk around for an hour and a half. I'm like, "What the fuck?" And then I go back. I'm like, "Oh, there was a valve handle in there. God damn it!" Those are the kinds of things you want to happen, where you overlook you overlook the stupidest thing out of fear.
Yeah, right? And it's crazy, right? Because like you're literally playing a remake in quotations of Resident Evil
Yeah.
2. You don't expect to be lost ever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but the fact that you are, it's like, oh yeah, because this is a new video game that I'm playing. It's not just like a carbon copy of a thing that I know super well, you know?
So.
And you know what else did that? RE1 Remake did that.
Hmm.
Where like
Yeah.
the first thing you do in the like the first major thing you do in the game brings you to a completely new environment that wasn't in the original RE1. You know? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, you have to go through a back door and there's a whole cemetery in the back of the mansion. It's like, what is this? You know? Like,
Yeah. You want to. You're like you load it up and you're like, okay, I'm going to the dog hallway. And
no,
no,
you're
you're not.
not. You're not. And guess what happens when you get to that dog hallway? No dogs.
Right.
You're constantly on your toes. You're just like, oh my God. And like RE2 Remake like does that really well. And like
Hmm.
I hope that they understand that for a potential RE4 remake. And I think a lot of it comes down to like hopefully upper management at Capcom like sees that M2 they didn't really make a good like a super good game out of RE3 remake. Like it's like I like it. I think it's fun, but like Dev 1 really like hit it out of the park with RE2
Hmm.
remake. And hopefully, like if there is an RE4 remake, Dev 1 is making it, you know?
Yeah,
Hopefully.
definitely. I've or the rumors of like an RE1 remake again. Like I don't
I
necessarily want to
yeah.
see that.
I have very mixed feelings on that because I think like you can do some story things better in like another remake, but like it's really not necessary in the slightest. They would
Yeah,
have to
cuz
really change it up. Like maybe if it was like if you're like first person Jill Valentine, you know, like maybe
yeah,
I would be excited for that. But I don't know.
it's it turns the games into shooters, right? No matter how
Yeah.
well they execute the other things, being able to like aim down and pop their knee
Hmm.
and like it turns it into a shooter and the games were never shooters. It was you wanted to outmaneuver them without using any bullets. You couldn't just easily get that stun. You shot him with the pistol and you couldn't there was no guaranteed like they're going to fall back or anything. They might, but in the newer ones like RE2 remake, pop their foot once, run around them.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
don't want to see that happen to RE1.
Yeah, I
We'll
totally
see.
I agree. I agree with you on that. Like
We'll see.
it's definitely like a difficult decision. I really don't want another RE1 remake just because and I feel like Capcom understands this too. Like I think they're really proud of the RE1 remake now. like that HD version like made them so much money,
Yeah.
like when it got re-released. So
Which goes to the point that they could easily do a small team and
yeah,
make a classic and
yes,
then make a huge amount of money from it and get great press.
yeah, totally. Why not?
Yeah.
Come on.
I wanted to ask, I guess before we wrap up, I wanted to ask, like, with your channel,
Yes.
what was the most fun video that you made?
This might come as a surprise, but the Darkstalkers retrospective is like the most fun I've ever had making a
Really?
video.
That's
Yeah,
one of yours that I haven't seen yet. I'm gonna have to put that on the list.
that video, if you don't know anything about it, it has like an Elvira intro.
I know the game.
Because it was like supposed to be my Halloween video. And so like I'm in the video, like dressed as Lilith, like on a set that I built in my place. And like I do like an Elvira-esque intro where I'm like talking about like how I'm like cryptically talking about Darkstalkers being a forgotten series. And then it goes into the actual video. And literally every aspect of that video was fun to make. And I think mostly because it's a fighting game. And I never talked about a fighting game up to that point. And I think it was just really fun because everybody knows the characters of Darkstalkers because they're all so iconic. But I don't think many people have actually played Darkstalkers. So it felt like I was kind of like presenting like a piece of like ancient Capcom history to everyone, you know? Like,
Yeah.
look at this. You guys know Morgan? Like, this is the game that she's from. She's not even the main character of this game. Did you guys know that? Like, it was very fun from start to finish, just making that video.
That's awesome. I played that in the arcades back in like pizza places.
Yeah, yeah, it's totally. And
Like
like
a little kid.
that's like the memory of Darkstalkers is like, oh, I played that in an arcade once, you know? So but that video is like a full series retrospective, and I think that was also another reason why I really enjoyed it because I didn't make it expecting to make more videos about Darkstalkers. It was just like I'm gonna cover the entire series and like what happened to it and how it's dead, you know? So
Yeah.
there wasn't a whole lot of expectation with that video.
I will check that out for sure.
Yeah, it's
I
super
didn't
fun. And
remember
there's a
that.
special guest in it too. There's a very special guest if you guys haven't seen it. I won't spoil who it is, but
What was the most stressful video to put together?
that's an easy one. It was the Cyberpunk review.
I was gonna say that before you said it.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
Because that video
Yeah.
was like, you know, I was looking forward to the game ever since they did like the title drop trailer, like back in like I think it was
2012?
2012, yeah, where they literally were just like CD Projekt Red was just announcing the title of their next project, and it was Cyberpunk 2077, which, you know, a secret piece of Susie lore. I love the original tabletop game. Like I used to play it with my friends all the time, Cyberpunk 2013 and 2020. So getting like a video game like based off of that lore was super exciting to me. So I'd been looking forward to it forever, you know, and like obviously the game released in like the worst state of all time.
Right.
But I played it, you know, and yeah, I was extremely disappointed by it, but like there was definitely a lot of like heart and soul in that game. Like there's so much like callbacks to the lore of the board game. There are so many references to other cyberpunk fiction. I love cyberpunk, like the genre. Like I love Ghost in the Shell and all this kind of stuff, like Blade Runner and like Dark City, like all these kinds of things. Like I love
City, wow.
cyberpunk. So getting a game like that where I could kind of like be like a trashy street kid like hacker, you know? And basically like live out the hacker's movie like in an open world video game. It was really fun, like even though it was like super buggy to me. So I just made this video where I was like, yeah, it is kind of like a piece of shit, but like I had a lot of fun playing it, guys. Like please don't crucify me. Like that, it was very stressful making that video, and that video was like 2 months of work, and it's over an hour long. It's like an hour and 14 minutes long. It's basically like a movie that you watch. But yeah, it was super stressful making it just because I was kind of nervous about the reception to it, I was nervous that it wasn't going to do good because it's not about zombies or vampires, you know, like,
Yeah.
or demons. But it ended up doing really well, and I think a lot of people kind of were happy that I didn't just make a video trashing the game. Like I was kind of like trying to find the good parts of it while also criticizing it fairly. Um, yeah, like I'm really proud of it, but it was definitely the most stressful video I've ever made. So
Wow. Well,
definitely Cyberpunk.
hopefully you won't have to do that again.
Yeah, and hopefully the game like gets better at some point because I would love to actually play like an immersive Night City game where I could like sit down and like eat food in the game, you know, and like do mundane shit and just live in that world because like right now it feels like a facade,
Yeah,
like the open
it doesn't
world.
feel like a place that you even want to be. And I
Yeah,
think that was a
yeah,
big mark against the entire experience.
yeah. Like the world looks incredible. Like
Looks
it's
incredible,
right up
yes.
my alley. Like I love the way everything looks. I love a lot of the side quests and the main story is great, but like there's not much to it, you know, which
Every
really
door
sucks.
is locked.
And it's like
You can't buy food from any vendors.
it's like are these locked doors going to be unlocked eventually? Like hairstylists, like please let me change my hair. Like is that
Yeah.
possible?
Yeah.
Like it's really weird. Like I feel like the game should have been a linear game. You know like a quest based linear game.
Maybe with like one big city, right?
Yeah,
That they could
yeah.
make really, really cool instead of like a giant world that's just like kind of empty.
Yeah, where there's like a fully rendered desert with like little towns like littered throughout it. Like it's like this is really cool, but like it's not there's not much to
Yeah.
do out here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Uh,
I liked it, but it's definitely I would never recommend it to anybody like right now. Like it is
yeah.
super broken still. Like
Yeah, I've kept up on some of the updates, and it
yeah.
just like they haven't. I mean, the main things they need, obviously bugs, right? But like, you fix bugs, and you still have the problem of the emptiness and the lack of AI, and that isn't
Yeah,
just something
yeah,
that you patch in.
for sure.
That's a whole rebuilding thing. Like what's gonna happen when they announce their next game? Like, how do they announce their next big game after this? It's going to be a weird sort of recovery that they have to do
Yeah.
after this because it's huge.
Like they really need to like assure people that they are going to deliver like a quality product. Like in
Maybe
all the
they'll
marketing.
maybe they'll just go like, all right, we're just going to do mobile games now.
I really hope not. Because gosh darn.
Fuck it.
Well,
What?
are you familiar with the like the way the Witcher games evolved? Because like the first two are pretty linear, like adventure games, and then the third one is
I'm
like a massive world, you know? Like
partially familiar.
I feel like they should have just did that for Cyberpunk. Like just
Yeah.
make like a very focused, smaller Deus Ex style game where you could like customize your character or something, you know?
Yeah, I would have loved that. That would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, but that's not what we got.
No.
Anyway,
What are some of your favorite channels on YouTube that cover things like games and movies and stuff?
um, so I really like your channel. I'll just make that the
Oh,
first one. It's
let's.
very nice. I like your channel because I feel like you and I like disagree on a lot of stuff, but like I like that. I like how I can watch a video and just be like, "Oh wow, I didn't really think of that," you know? Like
I same thing with yours. I watch something and I get that kind of different
yeah.
perspective. That's why I've wanted to talk to you for a while.
Yeah, yeah. And like that's really fun. I mentioned him before. I really love Gaming Brit Show. We've been friends for a while, so and he kind of like coached me through some of like the earlier content creation stuff here on YouTube. He's great. He makes really great videos. I love another YouTuber. I don't know if you know him. He goes by Genry Perez online. He
I'm not
talks
familiar.
he talks about a lot of Japanese games. He has like a full series on all of Suda 51's games and like what the subtext means like is like about a lot of those games and like how like shitty all the development of like all of his games are. Like they're really fun videos. Genry Perez, it's like G Henry Perez.
All
Definitely
right.
check him out. There's another one of my friends, Eurothug 4000. She goes, that's her screen name, but her real name is Maria. She makes a lot of really personal content, like she really loves like games like Death Stranding, like just for like the mundanity of like just like walking through like a world and like taking in all the scenery and like how that relates to like a real profession, like a real job in real life, like that. She talks about like those kinds of videos. She has a Silent Hill 3 video, which is really great. I'm just like
Nice.
shotgunning like a bunch of answers now because there's too many people to get to.
Yeah.
I love Grimbeard. I don't know if you've ever heard of Grimbeard, but he covers a lot of like classic adventure games. Like his whole thing is like he's very like goth, which like I'm goth too. So like like he covers a lot of like really funny point and click like FMV games from the past, and like he'll go outside of like his comfort zone a little bit with games like American McGee's Alice, like that series. His videos are fantastic. Big recommend for him. He also makes all the music in his videos, which is incredible. So it's
That's
like an
awesome.
original soundtrack for every video he makes, which is awesome. Uh, Another one of my friends, Indie Mouse. He just makes really funny videos about like lots of games. Been a friend of his for a while.
Cool.
Um, yeah, like another one of my friends, Cosmonaut Variety Hour, who does like tons of different things, like movie reviews and game reviews. I feel like he's been around for like 10 years on YouTube, and he's like always been successful, like really successful. So he's definitely someone that I look up to, like I look up to his content uh like a lot, and he really puts out a lot of really good content. His movie reviews are hilarious, but it's very like YMS kind of like feeling, if you know like
Sure.
YMS.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I'm sure there are more people, but like those are the people who I can name off of the top of my head right now. There are a bunch of other YouTubers that I watch that are not gaming focused, so
Yeah.
most of my subscriptions are like that, like
I,
makeup
I
and
I'm
politic.
sure. I'm kind of the same way because since I do so much gaming stuff myself, like in my time off, the last thing I want to do is like watch other people's gaming videos. I'd
Yeah,
rather,
yeah, I
yeah,
feel
I'd
you
rather
on
go
that.
to like movie stuff or whatever.
Oh, Racevic. Racevic is another great friend of
Yeah,
mine.
Razor's great.
He's great. I actually helped him in his RE6 video, and
Oh,
that
cool.
was hilarious, just playing that game with him. But yeah, I would be unforgiven if I forgot to mention Racevic because he's a great YouTuber as well. That taught me a lot of things early on. But
Nice.
yes, yes.
Um, the I guess I had a little bit of a list of questions here. The last one I had was, what are some games that you would really like to cover, even if they aren't in the plans soon? You've mentioned Silent Hill. I know you're doing DMC, but like you mentioned that you loved doing the Dark Stalkers one, like a fighting game that no one expected. You have a Spider-Man one. Like you
Yeah,
branch
yeah.
out sometimes. What's something that you would love to get to someday that's maybe a little unexpected from you?
So we mentioned him with Genry's channel, but I would love to cover like all of Suda 51's games. Like Killer 7 is like one of my favorite games. Classic Capcom game if you guys are unfamiliar.
Yeah.
And like No More Heroes I think is just really fun. I'm super excited for No More Heroes 3 coming next month. I just think Suda 51 is like one of those creators where he doesn't really care about like what's normal in the games industry, and like whenever he has like something political to say, like I think he executes on it so well through the language of video games, where like
Yeah.
a lot of games kind of fall flat, you know in that theme of like, you know, whatever like political issue he's talking about. Like he always does a really great job, and everything feels really unique and special. But like yeah, like no more games like No More Heroes, Shadows of the Damned, Lollipop Chainsaw, like I really want to cover those games in the future. Um and like of course some of Hideo Kojima's games like Snatcher, Police Knots, Metal Gear Solid. Like I really want to tackle those games at some point too, because they're, I grew up with a lot of this stuff, and it's like these are some of my favorite games that I'm trying my best to like branch out like just enough to where people see me as like a gaming YouTuber, which I think a lot of people do, instead of just strictly like a Resident Evil channel. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
there's a lot of variety. Final Fantasy, of course, is going to come at some point too, which is funny because like I started my channel with Final Fantasy, but like I think it would be really great tackling it when my schedule is like a bit more freed up, because those games are pretty deep and have a lot of like symbolism and subtext that I think would
I
be
imagine
interesting
it's
in
not
talking
very
about.
easy to get into like a video analyzing Final Fantasy.
Yeah, especially since like I love covering like all of the games in a video game series, and like Final Fantasy for years has been such a difficult series to just like collect the games for, like because there have been so many remakes of like the first three games, like in different art styles. Some of them are like full 3D. Like I just want like the original versions, which finally Square Enix is releasing all of them in like their full pixelated glory, which I love. So that'll definitely happen at some point. And maybe games like, the Souls games. Like I love Bloodborne a lot.
I was gonna ask you, what's your opinion of those, like Dark Souls and stuff like that? Do you play
Oh,
them
I love
much?
them.
Okay.
I've played them all. The only one I haven't finished was Sekiro. Like that's the
Hmm.
only one. I don't know, there was just something about it that didn't really click with me, that I didn't feel the need to finish it. But I've played all the Dark Souls games, and Demon Souls and Bloodborne. Bloodborne is my favorite just because it's like super gothic horror and it's really hard, And like you really feel like you're getting a lot out of the game. Like every time I play it, like it feels different. Where I can't really say that for a lot of other games.
Yeah, Bloodborne is the one I haven't played. I played some of Dark Souls and Sekiro. They're not for me. I can definitely
Yeah.
see that they are good. Um, I guess the worlds of those games don't draw me in. Like I've never
Yeah.
been like a medieval fantasy sort of guy,
Yeah.
and so that combined with I'm also not really into games where like you have a menu full of 50 different items that you can
Yeah, yeah.
cast this spell to get a 7.4 damage increase to your
Yeah.
fire element. I'm like, I don't want to do this. And so, but the thing is, that's not saying it's a bad game. It's just saying it's
Yeah,
not for
yeah.
me. So I played it enough to be like, this is awesome, but I don't want to play this anymore.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And
But
that's very understandable.
Bloodborne looks like it might be a little more in my taste. I'd like to try it at least. But I will be talking about Sekiro pretty soon on my channel. I
Okay,
can't
cool.
wait to see the shitstorm that is going to be.
Oh God.
Um, but I mean, even if you say, "Hey, I like it," I just don't personally like this thing. People are still gonna, what the fuck?
It's true. It's very true.
You know all
I
about it.
made a Parasite Eve 2 video one time, and I didn't realize that like the rest of the world didn't get Parasite Eve 1. So like most people like around the world only got Parasite Eve 2. So they only have the context of that game. And
Oh,
me saying something like, "Man, I wish it was more like the first game," like was really offensive to a lot of people,
damn, that
because
sucks.
they haven't even played the first game. So that was interesting. That was an interesting experience, to say the least. I think you might like Bloodborne. It feels like a little bit more adventure gamey and less like
Hmm.
stat focused, because like that's the kind of game where it's like if you get to a boss fight and you know that it's weak to fire, you just like do the fire element on your weapon and it will like do more damage. Like you don't have to like have a certain weapon or like stack a certain item anyway. Like every single weapon is very like singular and like good for something. It feels more like a hack and slash adventure game with very light RPG elements attached.
That's cool. I'd like to try it out sometime.
Yeah. And it's like Van Helsing, it's like super gothic horror,
Hmm.
and I think that's really cool. And like if you're into that, then you know.
More so than like medieval dragons and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Skeleton
There are no
guys.
dragons
Okay.
in Bloodborne. There's only
Yeah.
werewolves and other things.
I've always
Okay,
been.
look, I'll say this: Bloodborne. If you haven't played it yet, I'm not gonna spoil it. It has like a theme change at a certain point that I was not expecting the first time I played, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's what's happening here. That's what's actually lying under the surface. Oh my God, like this is so sick." And it really like I was enjoying the game up to that point. It made me like it even more. I was just like, "Wow, you don't see that a lot in video games."
That's
So,
cool. Yeah,
yeah.
like a tonal shift or something like that is a pretty bold thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you
So
remember in did you play the first Uncharted?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, and you think you know exactly the game you're playing, and then all of a sudden, there's like you're in like underground caves running around with a German machine gun as like monsters are crawling out of the shadows.
Yeah, like
Like
freaking like
that
vampire zombies
that was
are
a
like chasing
bold
you.
change. Yeah, like that was a really good like surprising moment in gaming history
Yeah,
where
yeah,
suddenly the game
totally.
changes.
I was like,
Um,
whoa, what?
I don't know if there's anything else you want to get to. We've been talking for a long time.
Yeah, we've been talking for like 2 hours. Holy crap.
Yeah. Is there anything else, any other topics on your mind before we wrap this up?
I don't think so. I think we had a really good conversation. This was a lot of fun. I was not
Hell yeah.
expecting it to be this fun. Like,
Yeah, it was really good. Really
yeah,
good.
this is great. I would love
Uh,
to do it again at some point. Maybe when like more
yeah,
video games come out that we both care about.
I would be happy to talk to you about whatever. Hell, maybe I'll call you up for some Resident Evil Outbreak co-op or something like that.
Yes, yes, that would be sick actually. 'Cause that game is super fun. Like in co-op.
You've definitely got me interested.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
So yeah, Susie, thanks a lot for coming on. Everyone, check out the Sphere Hunter on YouTube and also on Twitch. How often do you stream?
I've been streaming pretty regularly. I'm actually on like vacation right now, so it's a little less frequent, but I do stream that's the problem. I don't really have like a fixed schedule on streaming. I just kind of stream whenever I feel like it, but I always update Twitter when I do stream. So if you want to follow me for streams, definitely also follow me on Twitter, which is at TheSphereHunter. I'm pretty much just TheSphereHunter everywhere, like on Instagram.
Yeah.
If you want to see my sick selfies, yes, and all the things that I buy, like video game related, like follow me on Instagram. It's such a weird plug to do. Yeah, and like just YouTube and Twitch are also just the Sphere Hunter. Yes.
Great. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. This has been fun.
Yes.
Everyone, check out those links, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye, everyone.
Later, everyone. Bye.